When the subject is animal health and productivity, Phibro Animal Health has a complete portfolio with vaccines, nutritional specialty products, anticoccidial solutions, antimicrobial products, mineral nutrition solutions, technical services, and laboratory support. Phibro Animal Health, a leader in nutritional specialty products, proud to provide innovative solutions for the health of your birds and your success on the farm. Today we want to introduce a new solution to help support your animal health needs. Magnify Nutritional Specialty Product, a natural enteric health solution. A leader in the U.S. poultry industry of natural enteric health solutions, Magnify helps address challenges in antibiotic-free production systems. Magnify helps promote intestinal integrity, which helps maintain poultry health. Featuring all natural ingredients, Magnify works as a safe and effective feed additive. Magnify is a specialized proprietary blend of triterpenoid saponins sourced from specific species of kilea trees and yucca plants. And it's listed in the OMRI directory, which is a listing of products allowed for certified organic production of feed. Research has shown Magnify helps to provide improved immune response, which can lead to healthier birds. Healthy birds have a better ability to resist diseases and infections. Magnify also helps support better intestinal health. Healthy birds retain their ability to absorb nutrients and have better feed conversion and weight gain. Magnify also provides the potential for a reduction in ammonia production, which may lead to an improvement in foot health and a reduction of the ammonia impact on the environment. The same saponins used in Magnify are also safely used as adjuvants in vaccine preparations. Research conducted with Magnify in broiler and turkey diets showed significant improvements in feed conversion. And when Magnify was used in the presence of anticoccidial vaccination or ionophore programs, there was an additive effect showing significant improvement in feed conversion. Magnify has been shown to help enhance poultry health, which may lead to improved production results. Magnify can be used safely and effectively for poultry producers. It's delivering positive economic outcomes to U.S. poultry producers using antibiotic-free, no antibiotic ever, organic, and all-natural programs. Magnify, a safe and effective natural solution to help support intestinal health from Phibro Animal Health Corporation. Healthy animals, healthy food, healthy world.
Welcome to the last webinar of the Aqua and Poultry series. Thanks to Phibro, this has been a wonderful journey. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our last speaker, Dr. Philippe Caron from Brazil.
Hello. We will talk about inflammation from now on and talk about inflammation with a target in the gut, mainly because the gut is a big organ of the immune systems. And then to understand this impact of the inflammation, understand the impact of the gut health to this inflammation, it's important understand and answer some question about the importance of the gut. When we are asking about which is the largest lymphoid organ in the body, today to all technicians, it's so easy to understand and so easy answer about this. This organ is the organ that comprises 65% of all immune cells of the body. Think about this, 65% of all immune cells. It's a lot of cells. We are talking about more than 90% of all producing antibody cells. And think about this, we are doing all the day measures in the blood to understand the response of antibody response. But the big amount of antibody response are in the gut. But understand this is understand an organ more important than the bone marrow as immune organ. Of course, that we are talking about the organ responsible to digestion, absorption, and weight gain. This same organ, the gut, it's important to the immune response. And then to improve this immune response, improve to us, improve to the broiler, to gain the best conditions, we need to understand the aspects involved of this. Look, this chicken, this broiler, doesn't matter, with a lot of organs, bursa, spleen, liver, bone marrow, and the gut in the middle, in the center. When we are talking about this gut, when we are talking about understand the conditions to inflammation of this organ, we are talking about a lot of parts, different parts in the complete organ. Since of esophagus, since of middle gut, a lot of parts. Like this figure, you can see some of these parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, a lot of parts responsible to recognize a challenge, for example, recognize a challenge and response to this challenge. But the question is that how this organ could be response with the best quality to us, not to the best quality to the pathogen, because it's necessary eliminate the pathogen. It's evolution. But when we are seeing the elimination with a high cost, metabolic cost, we are seeing loss of money, because we are talking a loss of meat, for example. And then build up this gastrointestinal system, build up this immune system. It's our target. It's our objective. To do this, we can see all the things out of this gut, out of the broiler. And then, of course, that it is important, understand the bands, the flock house, understand the environmental conditions that involve the production. Because these conditions, these environmental conditions, as a nutritional condition, will be determined to improve this inflammation response. The kind of immune response related of different kinds of pathogens, coccidia, bacterial, virus, doesn't matter, will be determined by this environmental condition. And then understand this, it's talk about barriers, talk about biosecurity. But when we are talking about immune response, we are talking about barriers inside of the bird. And these barriers inside of the birds can be block a challenge. When we are talking about block a challenge, we did block challenge, just challenge. We don't can't block the amino acids, for example. We don't need block the nutrition. And then the balance between this, it's a very, very fine tuning. When we are talking about dysbiosis, for example, gut dysbiosis, can you see in the left side? In the same time, we are talking about inflammation. Look here, the inflammation, it's a mandatory steps, always will occur. But the consequence of this, sometimes the consequence of this could be an immune suppression. When we are talking about immune suppression, there is a lot of cause of immune suppression. Virus, mycotoxins, okay, a lot of causes. The mainly cause, it's a gut dysbiosis. Gut dysbiosis, it will be related with the balance between the bacteria, mainly the bacteria in the gut, for example. But when we are thinking and believe that the gut is the main organ of immune response, we can see that inflammation begin with this response of this gut. And then talk about inflammation, it's always talk about the intestine. I'll always talk about the gut. You understand the regulation of this inflammatory, anti-inflammatory response, it's understand the improve of the weight gain, the improve of the health, and improve of the production, of course. To understand this, we are always searching for this. When we have found this, we are very, very happy. It's a perfect gut. Look, the perfect. Look, the mucosal, the color. Okay, I will very, very happy when I see this. But sometimes in the same flock, we can see kinds like this, a red. It's a point, inflammation point. I talk about this as in a specific inflammation, which is the cause of this inflammation. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes it's a lot of cause, 3, 4, 5 cause. It's a rare one cause only. But understand which the cost of this, which is the loss related of this, it's our target. To talk about this, it's very, very, very easy. Talk about the compartments of this inflammation. Remember that the inflammation, it's a normal thing. It's a physiological response to the organism. Physiological because it's necessary. It's a part of the immune response, the innate immune response. And then remember, which means talk about innate immune response, it's important. During its inflammatory process, a lot of cells, several immune cells are involved. The function of this inflammation, it's receive, recognize a cause of aggression. But remember, the cause sometimes could be a pathogen, the cause sometimes could be an environmental condition. We call this about aseptic inflammation, for example. The inflammation could be chronic, of course, or acute. And then monitoring this, use biomarkers to understand this, and the gut will be the future, but is the present now. We are talking about today. What is immune modulation? It's a very common, many components search about this. Modulation, it means regulated. Regulate immune response with process and with products. The difference is important. When we see in the center, the gut, look at the bacterial, the virus in the gut, for example, and in the circle, a lot of things responsible to the quality of this gut. Breeder, sex, maternal factors, of course, antibodies come from the breeders, the gut region, the kind of feed, the housing, all circles here talk about some kind of issue important to inflammation. But we are talking about issues important to the weight gain, always the weight gain. And then search the balance, target the balance. It means found the perfect condition to this balance. In the left side, with blue, is not always possible. Without pathogens, perfect condition, environmental condition, it's sometimes it's impossible. But the right side, the red condition, it's a lot of inflammation. It's another good thing, because with this kind of inflammation, the bird sometimes is live, but the weight loss is very, very high. And then work to gain this balance will be our target. Build up this, it's our target. But to do this, it's important to understand, which means innate response. The innate is the first step, occurring the first 36, 48 hours of recognize of pathogen, mainly to the pathogen. The macrophage is the cell in the photograph. The macrophage or dendritic cell are the two kinds of cells responsible to this, because recognize and present these pathogens to the next cells. But during this time, there is a very, very, very high communication about the cytokines, inflammatory cytokines, and then the cost of this response is high, because the inflammation deviate the metabolic cost. Very, very high rate metabolic challenges are involved with this. And then the early condition and the first time, the early infections are involved with innate immune response. Control this, it's understand all things involved in the gut with this recognizing. Look this, a lot of words, microbiota, dietary fiber, pathogens, mucus, immune cells, any kind of these words means these compounds reflect a kind of response. And then search about this. Today, it's our way to understand this inflammation, this kind of inflammation related with the food, related with the environmental condition, related with the vaccination program, related with a lot of things. Understand this in the gut, it means understand how this gut can be build the inflammation, build the immune response. Important because this perfect buildup is our target to arrange this perfect recognize. Look, when we are talking about example, inflammatory example, LPS. LPS came from the gram-negative bacteria, for example, Salmonella, E. coli. This LPS, it's a trigger of inflammation. When the LPS are present, you can see in this graphic, we are talking about improvement of the body temperature. 1 Celsius degree, 1 degree. it means 1 degree, 23% improved metabolic rate. And the result of this, it's loss of weight gain. Loss of weight gain is not a perfect condition to improve the gain to our production. And then these things occurs in seconds and minutes after the challenge. We are talking about early conditions. To improve this, we can see the construction or the buildup of intestine since of the hatching. Since of the hatching, and of course, before hatchings, it's very important because we are looking for the barrier, and at the same time, the barrier came together with the absorption. Because of this, we are talking about immune nutrition today. Immune nutrition is the next discipline of the course, of course, because immune nutrition, it means understand the importance of the kind of barrier to put the pathogens outside, but not so greater to put the nutrition, the amino acids, put the nutrition outside. The nutrition is necessary to come inside. And then to understand this, you can see in the left side in red, the left side in green, and the right side in red. Right side, defect of barrier, gut barrier. Here, red, because we have inflammation. Look the amount of interleukins, the amount of biomarkers related of the recognize of the pathogen and the loss of the integrity. The ways to lose integrity, we will talk later, but the left side is a perfect functional barrier. It's our target. Perfect barrier. It means good bacteria, good nutrition, and good cells, immune cells involved in the quality of the tight junctions, for example. But we are talking about the same interleukins. And then the trigger for these interleukins, the trigger for this inflammation, it's our issue. Look the conclusions of this work, this article from this year, last year, I believe, when Oviedo are talking about holistic view of intestinal health. Holistic view. It's a very good issue to talk. But the conclusion is that, which is the important thing? Water quality and feedstock, type of additive used, biosafety and flock house environment, health program, breeder health, and incubation condition. We are talking about the gut of the broiler. The gut of the broiler, the health of this gut will be consequence of these kinds. Consequence of the water, feedstock, consequence of the incubation, the kind of incubation. And then understand these things. It's very easy to prove this. Look, this broiler, this chick, since of the first day of life, need guns, need proof, tools to remove this pathogen, to control this environmental condition. But these tools, these guns, are very high weight. And then the loss related of this, it means that the conditions of the environment put to us, it's artificial conditions. We can see density, we can see quality of air, quality of litter, and in these conditions, we are seeing a lot of things. Today, we are talking about this inflammation. Look in the gut, inflammation in red. In the lumen of this gut, ROS, which means ROS. It means a marker, a signal of inflammation. In these slides, we are seeing a very interesting thing. We are talking about normal bacteria in the gut, in the microbiota, normal microbiota, these microbiota are producing, for example, thiosulfate. Thiosulfate is a normal compound in the gut. When these gut are inflamed to other pathogens or to the environmental condition, to the damage, to the water, damage, some kind of damage, these ROS are present. What happens? This ROS transform thiosulfate in tetrathionate. What is tetrathionate? In our lab, tetrathionate, it's a compound to improve the grow up of salmonella. That is a kind of middle, a tetradenate middle to improve salmonella. What happened in the lumen of gut? The presence of this tetradenate, the consequence of this will be an overgrowth of salmonella. And then we are talking about a problem, a zoonotic problem, a public health problem, for example, salmonella, and the cause of this salmonella in the gut, in the meat, in the litter, the mainly cause, the first cause, it's inflammation. It's a very, very incredible thing because the inflammation related to the other kind of problems, environment problems, the consequence, final consequence, it's improve of salmonella, overgrowth of salmonella. It means that the holistic view, when we are talking about this last article, holistic view, it's the most important thing because holistic view, it's understand a problem, final problem, for example, salmonella, could be E. coli, but here salmonella, but the cause of this sometimes is not just the presence of salmonella for loss of biosecurity. The cause of this could be inflammation, a simple inflammation, a common, normal, and physiological inflammation. And then the question is that, what we can do to control this? What we can do to build up the things to us, not to the salmonella. It is the things. We are searching always for this chick. We are searching always for the quality of the chick. Look the quality. Look, the chicken are happy. And the happiness of this chicken remains the conditions in the environmental, in the litter, in the meat, in the public health. When we are talking about barriers, and then look, remember of the title, inflammation, in the right side, dysbiosis, we are talking about this, gut in the microbes, this balance of about this, look, intestinal inflammation is the balance about perfect mucosal barriers and not so perfect mucosal barriers. These not so perfect are related to some kinds of pathogenic microbes, some pathogenic bacteria. Sometimes no. Sometimes are related just with a kind of damage. This inflammation always are involved of nutritional competition. This nutritional competition could be a loss of weight. Remember, we are talking about nutrition to weight gain, to feed conversion, but here in the left side, our mainly target, sometimes salmonella in low doses, in low amount conditions, and microbiota, good microbiota in green, perfect. The right side, it's inverted. Salmonella, high, and microbiota loss. What we do to arrange this condition? Which is our responsibility to arrange this? The question is that when we are seeing the importance of the gut, look here, we are talking about importance of all kinds of immune systems or not so immune systems of the body. We are talking about brain, we are talking about lung, we are talking about skin, but all good response begin in the gut. When we read this kind of paper, it's just one example that talk about axis, gut-lung axis, at the same time talk about gut-brain axis. The conclusion is that the perfect gut, since of the hatching, or before this, during the incubation, the perfect gut or the more perfect gut that we can range is the more perfect other organs, as lung, as skin, as reproductive organs, doesn't matter, because the balance is that when we are talking about intestinal tract, we at the same time are talking about respiratory tract, for example. And then the importance of this, it's very clear to us because look, the probiotics, for example, the symbiotics, the prebiotics, there are a lot of kind of products today to use, a lot of kind of process, much more important than products. Process, it means air quality, leader quality, biosecurity quality, water quality, food quality. The process involved during the production guarantee the good condition of the gut. But the condition of the respiratory tract, for example, is the same. The bacterial ingested or perceived about the respiratory tract will be the same. And then the build-up of these organs is the same thing. The inflammation in the gut is the good trigger to understand sun loss. When we are doing the researches, for example, to put a weight to the protein, for example, to lipids, to carbohydrates, to understand that all these kind of products will be against the interleukin production. Always look interleukin production. Which means interleukin production? It means that the nutrients necessary to build up muscle, to build up money, will be lost in the immune response. And then the good immune response, which is the good immune response? It's a fast, quick immune response, because immune response is necessary. The inflammatory step of the immune response, the first step, it's a very costly. And then build up this chick to do a good immune response. It means improve the balance between the products, sometimes the products. We are talking sometimes about the antibiotic. We use antibiotic, a lot of antibiotics around the world, in some countries not so more, but the products, since of antibiotics, probiotics, prebiotics, oils, doesn't matter, a lot of products will be important to regulate the presence of the immune cells in the gut. And the presence and quality of immune cells, it's important to build up the good immune response, to quick inflammation phase, quickly, fast inflammation phases, and the most part of the time to adaptive immune response. Because adaptive immune response, it's an anti-inflammatory response, many times. The anti-inflammatory response are related to antibody production, for example. But the antibody production, it's a consequence of this first step, innate immune response. The macrophage, remember the macrophage, and this innate immune response will be much better as better was the buildup of the gut. And then the question was, when this thing begin? We are seeing today a machine. It's a machine to produce meat, of course. This machine will be selected to produce meat. We don't select it to produce immune response. And then it's a very, very difficult to this kind of animal to produce immune response, good immune response. This immune response is a very, very much inflammation, because it's normal to the evolution, to the selection of this kind of animals. But it is our animal. We work with this animal. And then during this first time, the first step, we will see some kinds of biomarkers as acute phase protein. Acute phase protein, it's like an arrow. It's like an arrow to show us the kind of immune response, necessary immune response to control the pathogen, for example. This acute phase protein are produced in the liver. This production, it's a drain of nutrients. And during this time, all the time, the liver are bigger, and the amount of acute phase protein is necessary to resolve the challenge. Okay, it's necessary. It's a physiologic situation. Remember this. But not necessary to us to produce meat, to produce broiler, eggs, doesn't matter. And then control this, balance this, it's our target. To do this balance, we need to understand the importance of the things involved of this. It's a very, very didactical situation. Look, the innate immune response in the big circle, induced innate immune response, are composed by nutrients, energy, and time. What the chicken, the broiler need to produce meat? Nutrients, energy, and time. It's the same thing. And then the size of the circle, it means that we are lost time, energy, and nutrients. Which is the little circle? Humoral immune response. Antibody, it's an anti-inflammatory response. Remember, I talked about this. When we are talking about 7% of investment, 7% is food. Food is a big investment to produce meat, for example, which is the main target of the body, natural. physiological target. Get this food, get this energy to physical barriers, and then to innate immune system, and then to adaptive immune systems, and then to cells. And the last thing, muscle. But muscle, it's important to us. And then how can we learn with this situation? What we can do to improve this? To do the inverse. To the myth will be the first, never. The physical barriers will be always the most important. And then do this in the quickly time before hatching. It's our target. To do this, I will show you example. For example, it's a biomarker. It's a biomarker that we can do to the mouth. This biomarker reach the gut, and normal thing is that it's impossible to observe this because it's a big size molecule. It's not possible to observe. This chick has 10 minutes of life, 10 minutes. But we are seeing two kinds of chicks. A chicks originated by perfect eggs, and chicks originated in the right side, the right side to the perfect eggs, and the left side originated by the washed eggs from the litter, for example. The difference is the same breeder, same house, same nutritional condition, all the same machine of incubation. The only difference is washed eggs and clean eggs. Look the difference. The gut, 10 minutes of life, the gut, it's a very good gut, clean egg. It's a worst, much worse when we are talking about the worst conditions of this egg. And then the maturation of these organs begin before the hatching. When we are talking after hatching, look the feed delay, for example, the workers with feed delay, we're talking about 6 hours, 12 hours, 24, 36 hours feed delay. The feed delay will build up inflammatory conditions. And this is a practical because transport, the quality of food, water related to the feed delay, the result is that the pro-inflammatory cytokines always be worse condition because the build-up of immune response are related to the signals, to the triggers. Pumps in green, pumps from pathogens, and dumps in red. Dumps from the stress, dump from environmental condition. These two things, the result of two things, is a cascade, inflammatory cascade. And then it's so easy to understand why we are talking about the minutes of life from this chick. And of course, when we are talking about the slaughterhouse, we are talking about the life of the broiler, 42 days, 5 days, doesn't matter. If this regulation is not so better, we will lose a lot of things. The amount of LPS in the serum is the same thing about these big size molecules in the photograph. Here, we are measuring the LPS in the serum. Not us, but a researcher, amount of LPS. This LPS in the serum is not normal thing. Thermoneutral, it means thermoneutral condition, environmental condition related with temperature, perfect temperature, not LPS. Chronic heat stress or acute heat stress, we will always see a bigger amount of LPS in the serum. It means that the gut is not so good. And then the inflammation in the gut related to environmental condition. It's very easy to understand. Again, the LPS reach from the negative bacteria. Remember, gram-negative bacteria. This graphical are talking about the amino acids, for example, lysine. Could be any kind of amino acids, in this graph, the lysine. The amount of lysine and two conditions, with or without LPS, and the measure of protein retention. Weight gain. When we are seeing the presence of LPS, the result is that the protein retention is worse. We are lost money in this condition. But LPS, it's a normal. There are E. coli all the time in the gut. Which is our target then? Good, perfect. Good condition with the microbiota, with the tight junction, all things related to this condition of this gut. And then to reach this, we need to understand that, look, when we are seeing the epithelial cells in the lumen, we are seeing in the tissue of this gut a lot of immune cells, macrophage again, a lot of interleukins, and the blood vessels. When we are talking about the triggers to do this, remember to the first or second photograph. The perfect gut, the good quality, and the inspecific inflammation. Which means inspecific inflammation? Which means a disbalance. Disbalance, it's a balance between inflammatory and anti-inflammatory response. Look, it's the same place, the same epithelium, but look in the red. Which is the cause of this red? Which is the cause of this inspecific inflammation? When this inspecific inflammation are specific inflammation, perfect, because we understand the enteritis necrotic challenged by Clostridium, challenged by Salmonella, challenged by Coccidia. When it's specific, perfect. But look, it's not always possible. Our target is understand this. And which is the best way to do this? All day, build up information. All day, use the teasers, necropsy, dates, all the day. The baseline, we are talking about baseline. The same way that we are talking about antibody baseline, ELISA baseline, we are talking about gut quality baseline. Which is the baseline of my company? Which is the best baseline of this gut? The baseline of the quality of these cells, the quality of the cells that live inside of the gut, macrophages, which is the quality of phagocytosis of this macrophage. For example, mycotoxins, it's a very dangerous to the quality of phagocytosis. And then we are talking about a lot of triggers involving the nutrition, in the weight gain, in the production. That means the quality of macrophages, the quality of these interleukins, and then the look in the same place, we are talking about red lines. Red lines, it means crosstalk between the cells, very high. This crosstalk is necessary. Which is necessary? Is necessary because we are talking about the evolution. Health in the first step, health. This chick needs to survive, but to us is necessary weight gain. And then to understand this perfect balance, we need data, we need information. We need to do all the day, 24 hours by day, collect information. To antibodies in the blood, antibodies in the gut, cells in the blood, cells in the gut. They understand the quality of these cells and understand today we are talking mainly to the search of biomarkers. Which means biomarkers? It means different kinds of proteins or products generate inside the gut, for example, or generate inside the blood. If we are talking about the gut, it's better because it's not invisible. And then search this kind of molecules that we are talking about biomarkers, means, for example, the amount of inflammation and means the kind of inflammation, aseptic inflammation or septic inflammation. These biomarkers, it's our future in the field. It's a present today in the researchers, of course. We know a lot of biomarkers. We know about a lot of biomarkers presence in the gut, but transport this to the field transport this to the practice, it's a question of time. We need time to do this standard, to understand the standard related of this. It's our mainly target. Well, my idea was talk about this inflammation in the gut. We talk about the importance of different kind of cells, compartments, microbiota, bacteria, and the story at the final is that we are always searching balance of inflammation. When we learn about antibiotics, 50 years later, antibiotics, we are talking about the balance of interleukins. Here, interleukins, it's an arrow to inflammation. We are searching about this different to antibiotics sometimes in some countries. Our customer are looking for this. And then talk about this, it's talk about new tools to improve weight gain, feed conversion, and to improve the best quality of inflammation. It's our mainly target. It is the history. Thank you for your company. Thank you for the fiber once again. And I will wait for the question if you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, for the informative talk and for doing your presentation with us today. Now we just move over to a short little question and answer, and they came in from all over the world. So here's the first one, and this one is all the way from Indonesia. What are the main causes of gut inflammation in ABF broilers compared to a conventional system, and what are the most effective ways to minimize the effect or impact to gut inflammation in both systems?
Okay, thank you for the question. Well, I believe that in fact the causes of inflammation are the same. Some you have already mentioned it. There is pathogens, there is damages of environmental condition. The infectious pressures in the two different systems may be different. What is different about these systems are the alternatives that the chicken has to control inflammation. The alternatives are different. When we invest in alternatives to antibiotics to modulate the microbiota, modulate the inflammatory triggers, for example, showing that it's possible to create antibiotic-free with investments in biosecurity, mainly investment in process. And then if the triggers are the same, the challenge will be the same. But the improvement to reach good quality, environmental quality, it's our target. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. And now for the next question. How does the drinking water chemical composition impacts the gut health?
Well, about this question, the chemical composition of the water can vary when the presence of some minerals, for example, changing the hardness or the pH of the water. But in the end, the quality of the water, because this water is free of pathogens, when treated with chlorine, for example, bring benefits, in fact, associated with inflammation. As aseptic inflammation associated with the composition, just the composition, I believe that being aware of the presence of minerals that alter the osmotic balance of intestinal cells may be interesting. But I believe there are a lot of compounds, I don't know all the compounds related to the quality of the cells in the gut.
Thank you, Doctor. And now just for another question from Indonesia. How do mycotoxins impact gut health? What kind of mycotoxin and level?
Thank you for the question. And talk about mycotoxins is very hard, very hard. It's well known that the effect that mycotoxins have on the sensitivity scale affecting the immune system, digestive system, nervous system. It's a very big problem in the little amounts of mycotoxins. The principles are related to the viability of the intestinal and immune cells, mainly altering phagocytosis, for example. This altering of phagocytosis are related to the recognition of some kinds of pathogens, as a Salmonella, for example, as E. coli, and culminating in inflammation. But talking about the doses is difficult. It's difficult because even in a meta-analysis determined by the time of exposure, association with other nutritional factors, it's difficult to reach definitive information. Aflatoxin, fumonisin, DOM, DAS, for example, can generate stress and work times with different doses, different times, and results are very, very variable. And then it's so hard to talk to the specific mycotoxins, afla, fumonisin, DOM, DAS. There is a lot of work, but understand overdoses, time of consumption, nutritional factors is necessary to prove the effect, this kind of effect on the gut health.
Thank you, Doctor. Now for a question all the way from Malaysia. What is the impact of gut inflammation in the nutrient absorption, and what nutrients are more affected?
Well, at the same way, talk about this. Once the intestine is infected, there is a metabolic deviation. We talk about this. Solve this with alteration in the cellular junctions, tight junctions, in the kind of mucus, for example. It's a result of the challenge. Well, consequently, the portion of nutrients in general will be affected. As during this diversion, there is a lot of production acute phase proteins, inflammatory markers, as when observed with the presence of LPS when we are talking during the lecture. The cost associated with amino acids culminating in the protein retention, critical nutrient, but not only one, obviously. See, the amino acids is always the main thing, maybe because the cost of amino acids, but the other kind of nutrients are important too.
Thanks, Doctor. Now we've got a question all the way from Thailand. How do we know what the cost of the gut inflammation for the poultry industry?
In the practice, it's all day we are doing these measures. Dr. Clason, for example, there is a lot of works about this to understand the mathematical cost involved with calories, metabolic rate associated with fever, for example. And then, yes, we know there is a big example, for example, about this, the practice observing when we are talking about the empathy between the flocks, the cleaning of this house, and if we will talk about the each day of cleaning, each day of empty, we are talking about 3 points of feed conversion to each day. 3 points of feed conversion to each day. At the day 11, for example, at the day 11, it means that this point of the cost to maintain homeostasis of the presence of the pathogens. And then, yes, the industry know, but again, each industry must build up the proper information.
Now we have a question all the way from South Africa, which is the country I live in. So yes, are there any of the antimicrobials that are traditionally used as growth promoters that have an anti-inflammatory effect? If there is, could it be useful as a means of helping reduce the negative?
It's a good question because today we have a new molecules and thinking about the effect, the direct effect of the molecule. Yes, there are antibiotics that affected phagocytosis, for example, and for this reason can decrease the innate response time, changing the inflammatory cost. Of course, all kind of antibiotics are related to the inflammatory cost because drop down the amount of negative bacteria, not the gram-negative, negative bacteria. But thinking about the molecule, specifically the molecule, yes, there is some kind of result about this related to the phagocytosis, to the improve the kind of improve early effect in the innate immune response to some molecules.
Now we have a question all the way from Bangladesh. How long does the gut usually take to come back to its normal function after the removal of the inflammatory agent?
It's a good question too, because today we have new tools to understand this. The conventional tools related to the metabolic jaws, to the nutritional turnover, I can talk about seconds. Seconds. When you think that the trigger is no longer present, because the turnover and reallocation of nutrients, it's very, very fast. But this is almost unreal because in the real environment, the triggers are present in greater quantities, amounts, all the time. And then today, when we are measuring, for example, the level of oxidation, we're doing this in our lab, the amount of oxidation of the animal. This show to us the recovery capacity to the benefit that the products, some products, for example, vitamins, amino acids, antioxidants, can help us to do this come back to the normal situation. But this normal is it's very, very fast. And the tool to understand, the best tool to understand this today, I believe there's a level of oxidation of animal, not just the enzymes of oxidation, but the oxidation level.
Now we've got another question from Bangladesh. The particle size of feed ingredients or feed pellet has a correlation with gut inflammation, and is it age specific to birds?
Thank you for the question. Ever, always, the inflammatory effect of dietary fibers, for example, the quality of pellets, it's well documented, for example, well documented. But this involves such a large amount of variables that I do not dare to enter in this cave alone. The nutritionist is good people to walk with us to prove this. Each company need to test this. It's necessary to test these variables and place biomarkers, understand how biomarkers. For the first time, of course, the first time of week is important, but I believe that search from biomarkers to prove the pelletization quality, pellet quality, the dietary fibers. It's a lot of information today that prove that the microbiota are related to this. And of course, if microbiota are related to this, the inflammation are related to.
Thank you, Doctor. Now for our last question for today. This is a question all the way from Philippines. What impact more the gut health, the cold or the heat environment?
Oh, I believe that both. Temperature extremes are undesirable anyway. There are many health evaluations. I show, I believe that I show in the presentation the example of LPS in the blood, in the serum, and related to the heat stress, for example. Heat stress, acute heat stress or chronic heat stress can be cause a damage, a great damage in the gut quality because this heat stress, for example, mainly heat stress, I believe that heat is more important than cold, but cold, of course, is important too. But these two kinds of triggers are involved to the DAMPs. Remember, DAMPs, it's a molecular patterns related to the damage. And then different of PAMPs came from pathogens. The DAMPs are a trigger from the different ways of inflammation. And then I believe that both, but in the amount of workers and research about this, the heat stress, I believe this is more common.
Once again, thank you to Dr. Philippe for sharing your knowledge with the world. A very big thanks to Fibro Animal Health to organize this aqua and poultry webinar series. A special thanks to our viewers from 40 countries over the world that followed us. To request your CPD certificate, please go to the homepage of this platform. Use code FIBRO335. We hope to see you soon. Stay safe.